What's up and welcome back to the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. Thank you as always for joining me today. Today we have another great topic to dive into. That topic is the 3 best supplements for athletic performance. If you want to get bigger, you want to get faster, you want to get stronger, you just simply want to get the most out of what you're doing in the gym, with your workouts, with your training, your running, your cycling, whatever it may be, let's talk about supplements today, okay? Because while supplements aren't necessary, they can be a helpful piece to the puzzle to help you experience more progress working towards the goals that you have. In general, supplements just can make the process a bit easier. Again, they're not necessary, but I think in a lot of cases, for you to get optimal results. And let's be honest, I don't think anybody can get quote unquote optimal results. It's very hard to have your entire life positioned in a way that's going to maximize that one thing being what you're doing with your exercise program. But to get optimal results, it's very hard for you to get every single bit and piece that your body needs from your diet, from the regular food that you eat. And let's be clear, you can get all of the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that you need from food, but most people don't. For most people, it's a struggle to get all of those things, so supplementation can be something that's extremely beneficial. So I'm going to dive into the 3 best supplements for athletic performance in today's episode, and we're limiting it to 3 because there really only are 3 that I think are actually worth your time. Okay. There are literally hundreds and thousands of products on the market that you could buy. You could go to a supplement store online or walk into your local GNC or vitamin shop and find so many different things that you could purchase. But when it comes down to it, literally, when it comes down to it, based on the research evidence that we have, and this stuff has been trialed and tested over and over and over again in sports science labs, there really only are 3 supplements out there that truly do make an impact. And so we're going to talk about what those 3 are today. And I'm excited to do it. So real quick, first and foremost, if this is your first episode, thank you for joining me on the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe, okay? Because that way you get every single episode the minute that it is released. And I'm on basically every platform, okay? So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, video episodes are uploaded to YouTube, iHeartRadio, Audible, anywhere you could listen to a podcast, you're going to find this podcast. So make sure you subscribe. And if you can, afterwards, when you're done listening to this, if you enjoyed it, if you found it helpful, and you can leave a rating or review, that would mean the world to me because that helps the podcast get in front of more people, and it helps us impact more people in a positive way with the right information about health and fitness. So I greatly would appreciate that. And lastly, the one other thing I want to talk about before we dive into today's topic is training camp. Now, if you've been a listener to the podcast for a while, I recently launched my online fitness membership called Training Camp. You can still sign up. Fun thing about it is you can sign up at any time. With my one-on-one coaching, I only open up applications a few times a year. With Training Camp, you can sign up at any time you want, okay? Now, if you haven't signed up yet, you did miss the massive 80% off sale that happened last week. But I'm still offering a little bit of a discount here for those of you who may have missed that. So if you are interested in signing up for Training Camp, if you did miss the massive founding member launch, you could still sign up and use the code TC, like Training Camp, TC50, TC50, and that will get you 50% off your first month of Training Camp. That is only going to last for another week, okay? So if you want to get into Training Camp, we're off and running. We got a really great group. People are diving into the workout plans, and there's a lot of really fun discussion and supportive chatter and banter in the Facebook group. We're having a lot of fun. The Q&As have been a blast so far. Just did one the other day, and it was just full of amazing questions. Everybody's getting the support they need. Everybody's energized, motivated, determined to make progress, and I love that. I would love to have you in that group too, if that sounds of interest to you. So chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp, and then you can use the code TC50 to get 50% off your first month. And you know what's cool is it's only $50 a month at full price. So it's like 95% cheaper than personal training. Pretty good option. So I hope to see you there. All right. Otherwise, let's dive into the topic of the day, which is the 3 best supplements for athletic performance. And the one that I want to start with is creatine. And you've probably heard of creatine. If you haven't, I'm going to tell you what it is and why it's important. But creatine is something that is actually naturally produced in your body. So your body naturally produces this compound called creatine. It's found in your muscle cells. And when you supplement with creatine, that means you're giving your body just a little bit more on top of its natural production. Now, with some supplements and other products, if you supplement with it, it can negatively impact your body's ability to produce that same thing. That's not the case with creatine. Supplementing with creatine just adds on top of what your body already produces. And by supplementing with creatine, it has a trickle-down effect in a lot of positive ways to athletic performance and recovery, and, just seeing what you do in the gym result in the progress that you want. Creatine produces energy for your muscles during high intensity workout, during short duration exercises. So for things like lifting or sprinting or jumping, creatine is going to be something that does make an impact. And what I've found is, for most people, when you start taking creatine, you notice a bit of a performance increase after you start taking it in the first, 2 to 4 weeks. And then what happens afterwards is you keep taking creatine and you don't really notice anything. But that's okay, because you got that bit of elevation in your training performance. And by continuing to supplement with it, you're continuing to give your body everything it needs to stay at that elevated training performance. And if you were to stop taking creatine for an extended period of time, you may see that it gets a bit harder to train at the same level that you were at. It's not going to be anything magical. There's, funny enough, every once in a while I'll see social media posts in my feed talking about creatine, or like my body on creatine. And it's almost like an inside joke in the lifting community now, where people who take creatine for the first time think that they're like taking a steroid, and it's just not the case. You're not going to get this exponential increase in the weight you can lift, the amount of reps you can do, the amount of muscle you're going to build. You'll get a slight bump, and that's great, but that's all it is. But with that said, I don't want a slight bump to be seen as something that is nothing or not worth it. Numerous studies have found creatine supplementation can lead to significant increases in strength and power and muscle mass. If you think about just getting like a couple percentage points of an increase, if you factor that across a long time duration, that turns into a lot of additional gains that you can make. So there's this one meta-analysis in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research that found that creatine supplementation resulted in a 20 to 30% improvement in strength and power performance for high-intensity exercises like sprinting or like lifting weights. So that's pretty significant. And that probably is relative to that initial bump that I talked about a couple of minutes ago, where it's like you start taking it, you're going to notice an improvement early on. And then that noticeable improvement won't continue to happen, but you will still be getting the benefits of creatine. Creatine is also perfectly safe. It's relatively inexpensive, and the more that it gets tested. So creatine is the most tested fitness supplement on the market, which is why I and most people have so much confidence in saying that supplementing with creatine is kind of a no-brainer. It's going to benefit you. We're also now finding that while creatine continues to get tested, but in different ways, there's all kinds of research showing that there's other potential really beneficial health outcomes from supplementing with creatine, like increased cognitive performance and whatnot. So there's really potentially, outside of just your training performance, your athletic performance, there's potentially a lot of other good reasons to supplement with creatine as well. And like I said, it's very safe, pretty inexpensive when you compare it to the other supplements that are on the market. And most people can take about 3 to 5 grams a day consistently and get all the benefits from it. You'll probably buy some supplements or see some supplements that say you need to load creatine. You can. You don't need to, but you can. But if you're just taking it consistently day after day for weeks and months on end, you're going to saturate your muscles with the creatine that you're adding, that you're supplementing with. and it's going to give you all the benefits that you could want. So 3 to 5 grams a day consistently, and that'll get you all of those benefits that we just talked about. So creatine is the obvious number one supplement for increasing athletic performance. Now let's move on to supplement number 2, and this is one that I'm sure you're probably familiar with. Supplement number 2 that I recommend is caffeine, okay? Caffeine might not be something that you think of as a fitness supplement, but there are tons of fitness-related supplements that have a lot of caffeine in them, and they have a lot of caffeine in them because there's tons of evidence that shows caffeine improves performance in the gym. And I'm laughing because it seems so obvious, right? Like if you just think about your morning cup of coffee, you drink it, you feel energized, and typically because you feel energized and maybe a bit more focused, you take that energy, you put it into something productive, and you do really good work for a couple hours. It's the same thing in the gym, right? Caffeine is a stimulant. It's a natural stimulant. You often find it in coffee or tea. Some people have it in energy drinks. You can also, from a fitness supplement standpoint, find it in pre-workout supplements. And what it does is it acts on your nervous system, and it causes really a cascade of effects that lead to you feeling more focused and energized. And there's a bunch of sciencey stuff that probably really doesn't matter. and I can't even really speak to it, at an expert level because I am not a scientist, but, it's going to help you feel more energized. And I think you know that, and I know that, and that's where we can end the sciencey stuff. So you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, that's great, but okay, how do I apply it to training? Well, from a athletic performance standpoint, caffeine, it increases your alertness. So that's really good because if you're alert when you're in the gym, lifting or doing your workouts, that's going to help. It reduces the perceived effort that you have to put in, which means like it essentially makes it feel easier to do the things in the gym that you have to do. So if you're lifting a heavy weight, you have caffeine before you do that workout, it's going to make that feel easier. So that's a benefit. It may help with like delaying the fatigue that you feel from an exercise or from a workout, which means like you'll have more energy that sustains you in a workout. Obviously that's helpful as well, because if you can push off that really fatigued feeling, that's going to allow you to do more quality work in your workout before you get super fatigued. And so if you think about, just your morning cup of coffee that you probably have every day, I'm having mine right now while I record this podcast episode, it's helping me focus on the task at hand, which is great. And if you can focus on the task at hand when you're working out, that's only going to benefit you. It gets you more energized to perform that task, which is great as well. All those things can lead to really fantastic athletic performance. I think this one is pretty straightforward. Caffeine is a stimulant. It gives you more energy. If you have more energy, you're going to have better training. That's the long and short of it. I will say though, it's careful. You need to be careful with how much you supplement caffeine and just be aware of where you're getting your caffeine from. Just because there are pre-workout supplements, it does not mean you need to supplement with a pre-workout to get the caffeine for your workout. What actually is the case is a lot of pre-workout supplements have other ingredients in them that may or may not help you perform better. There's not a lot of consensus research out there that says some of these other ingredients actually do make a positive impact. Like if you've ever taken a pre-workout supplement before, you may have noticed that it makes you feel a little bit tingly. Well, there's a ingredient in the pre-workout supplement that makes you feel tingly. It's not the caffeine. And I think a lot of people associate that tingly feeling with, oh, I'm ready to work out, but it's actually an ingredient that's just put in there to make you feel tingly. And then it's like kind of like what's the word for it? A placebo effect where, okay, you feel tingly, you think it's working. So then you're going to work harder because you think you're getting the extra added benefit from that pre-workout. So it's funny how some of these pre-workout supplements are designed. And it's also, at the same time, not funny because there are some, if you're buying the cheaper ones or you don't know a lot about the brand and if it's reputable and if it's really been tested and certified, there are some that could be contaminated, that could be dangerous, that could, have proprietary blends in them where you don't know really what the ingredients are that you're consuming. So you need to be careful with the supplementation that you do with caffeine. Be also careful about how much caffeine. Every pre-workout supplement is going to have slightly different amounts of caffeine. Normally it's in milligrams, so how many milligrams of caffeine you're having prior to a workout. You could quite honestly just have a cup of coffee before you work out, and the caffeine from that will give you probably just as much benefit as what you would get out of a pre-workout supplement. Now, I'll be honest, I take pre-workout supplements. I love them. It's part of like my pre-lifting routine, so it just helps me, again, placebo. There's probably some placebo involved where it just helps me get in the mode to lift. But you don't need a massive amount of caffeine. I take about 150, 160 milligrams, which from a pre-workout standpoint is probably on the lower end. I know some people who will do 300 or 400 or 500, which is terrifying to me. You can easily go overboard with caffeine. And I know from experience, trust me, I'm from the era of like really bad supplements. So when supplements started to get really popular in the early 2000s, that's when I started lifting. And I remember taking a product called NO Explode. And I remember I would take it, and I was actually blogging back then. Just doing like blogging on sports, blogging on fitness. And before my workout, I would be in front of the computer sipping on my pre-workout and typing. And this is actually a great example of how the focus element and the alertness element plays in. I would sip on it while I was working at my computer, and I would feel so good. It would get better and better and better, feel better and better and better while I was typing. And I'd be getting so much work done. It was unbelievable that I was like, oh, I should have another scoop. And I would do another scoop, and I feel better and better and better. And then I get to this point where it's like my stomach was saying, this doesn't feel so good anymore. And then it would get worse and worse and worse. And I had a couple moments where I was actually keeled over on the floor, feeling like I was going to throw up. Probably did throw up a couple times. Really messed up my stomach. So like you can go overboard very easily. So that's just something I want to make sure that I mention. But in general, when we're talking about athletic performance in the gym, getting all you can from your workouts, caffeine is a no-brainer. It absolutely helps. All right. And supplement number 3 in today's episode is going to be another one that I'm sure you're aware of: protein. Okay. And let's be clear, when we're talking about supplements and supplementation, and aligning it with protein, you do not need to take a protein supplement. You absolutely don't. You can get all of the protein that you need from food. That protein from food is going to be just as effective. I think there's some confusion out there about like, oh, maybe a supplement of protein is more effective for building muscle than eating protein, or like it gets to your muscles quicker. And like there are some little details that are involved, but in general, if you're hitting your daily protein every single day, whether you're doing it from supplements or from food or a combination of both, you will get the same net outcome, okay? So you do not need to supplement with protein. But with that said, it does tend to be very handy. And I think most people can probably benefit from like a shake throughout the day, once a day. And you kind of place that wherever it makes the most sense. For me, I have a shake with my breakfast every day just because like, okay, I was just sleeping throughout the night. It's been a while since I've had some protein. Like to start the day off with a high amount of protein. So I add a protein shake to my breakfast. I get like 50 grams of protein to start the day. And then it makes hitting my protein goal really easy for the rest of the day. I like that. So protein is a supplement that I think is super handy. Now, why is protein important? Protein is, it's one of the 3 macronutrients, and it has what are called amino acids in it. Protein is comprised of chains of amino acids, which are the building blocks of like what your body needs to be able to repair and grow muscle tissue. Okay. Without those amino acids, your body's not going to be able to do that. So getting in enough protein is really important. And I'll pause right here because if you don't know how much protein you're supposed to have, I do have a really helpful tool that's completely free that you can get right now. If you want to pause the podcast and go over to my website, chrisgatesfitness.com/newsletter. When you sign up for my newsletter, I send that out once a week, just giving you free content on health and fitness. When you sign up for it, the free gift for signing up is my free calorie calculator, okay? And the calorie calculator, you just plug in a few basic pieces of information about yourself, and it spits out exactly how many calories, and in addition to calories, protein and carbs and fats that you should eat based on your fitness goals. So it's really helpful, and it'll tell you how much protein to eat if you are not sure about what's going to be best for you. But getting in enough protein is really important, especially if you're consistently exercising, you're challenging your body in the gym, and your muscles need to recover and adapt after those training sessions. So, protein, it's like if you're supposed to eat 150, you use the calorie calculator and you find you need to eat like 150 or 200 grams of protein a day, but you're only used to eating 50 grams of protein a day. It can be really tough to get all of those additional grams of protein from food. You probably feel really stuffed. That's a tough transition to make. And I wouldn't recommend just making that jump in one day, because what's probably going to happen is a lot of gastrointestinal distress, and it may be pretty discouraging to feel like that when you're trying to do something positive. So, getting an easy 20 to 30 grams of protein in a protein shake is a nice, simple way to boost your protein for the day and help you hit whatever that protein goal is. Now, getting enough protein in and supplementing with protein, obviously when you're in the gym and like I just said, you're challenging your muscles, they need to repair, they need to grow. It's a pretty simple process where like you do that workout, your muscles get broken down and fatigued, and then you eat protein, or you consistently have protein throughout the day. That protein, those amino acids get into your bloodstream, they float around your body, they get delivered to those muscle groups that really need them, and then your body gets to work in utilizing them to repair, recover, grow. Now, if you're not doing that, if you're not getting enough protein in consistently, but you're consistently training hard, that's going to put a lot of stress on your body. And what will tend to happen is, number one, you're going to plateau. You're not going to be able to progressively overload. You're not going to be able to see your training performance go up, which is a problem, because if you want to adapt in some way, you're not going to be able to adapt. But the longer you do that, you're going to feel more sluggish, run down, fatigued, and you'll probably end up getting injured because you're continuing to throw damage at those muscles, and those muscles can't recover. So that's where injuries often happen. So protein supplementation and just protein in general is really, really important. And if you struggle to eat enough protein, some type of whey protein supplement, a whey isolate, could be really, really helpful. And the cool thing about protein supplementation nowadays is, as compared to the early 2000s when I started using supplements, is there are so many different types of protein now. So there's vegan protein powders. There's protein powders if you may be lactose intolerant. Basically, any type of situation that you're in with your diet or any diet plan that you follow, there's going to be a protein powder out there that fits what you want and need. And I will use this as an opportunity to plug Legion. I do work with Legion as my supplement sponsor. I almost never mention it because supplements are not necessary. So I don't ever want to come off like, hey, you should be having supplements and you should be buying these supplements from this company. But Legion is a company I really believe in, and you can get 20% off your order if you use the code CGATES. That's just my name, right? Chris Gates, CGATES. If you want to try some Legion products, you can, and that's your discount code to get 20% off. But protein obviously is going to be really impactful and beneficial. And that's it. Creatine, caffeine, protein, those are the three that stand out as really the most scientifically proven supplements when we're talking about athletic performance. If you want to increase strength, if you want to increase power, enhance endurance, support muscle recovery, these are the supplements that are going to do it. They're backed by decades of research. They're all relatively safe, and they're really the only three that you need to be worried about. When we talk about making progress and what needs to happen, especially from like a dietary perspective or a supplement perspective, 90 to 95% of the progress you can make is just based on you and your habits. And that extra 5 to 10% might get filled in a little bit with these supplements. So like if you don't even have the habits in place yet, don't waste your money on supplements. You got to get the habits in place first. You got to get consistent with working out. You got to get consistently good sleep. You got to consistently be hitting your calories, right? And then if you start to get those pieces to the puzzle in place and you notice that there are still some areas that are lacking, that is the time when you turn to supplements to try and fill in the gap. So I hope you found this episode helpful, and it was a fun one to put together. Look out for the next episode of the podcast coming next week, where we're going to talk about the 3 worst supplements, the 3 that I would not recommend. And funny enough, like outside of these 3, I really don't recommend any other supplements, but there are a few that are just awful that I really don't want you to use. And we're going to make sure that happens in next week's episode. So like I said, hope you found this episode helpful. If you have not subscribed already, make sure that you do. I appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the next one. So until then, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.